Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. I'm really glad you're here. As an executive coach, I see this deeply frustrating career trap catching some of the absolute hardest working people out there. Recently, though, I read this incredible leadership brief on something called the dilution problem, and honestly, it completely changed how I look at career advancement. We're going to walk through this material together today. I'll even share a recent client case study to show you exactly why just being visible everywhere is absolutely not the same thing as strategic positioning.
To really wrap our heads around this, I want to introduce you to a composite of a few clients I've worked with lately. Let's just call this client Alex. Now, Alex is that exhausted, super high performer we all know. Honestly, maybe you feel like Alex sometimes. Alex checks literally all the traditional visibility boxes. Saying yes to every cross-functional committee? Check. Attending all those optional networking mixers? Yep. Making sure their name is plastered on every single project update? You bet. Alex was everywhere. But, and here's the kicker, despite all this exhausting effort, Alex was advancing nowhere. Whenever the big promotions came around, Alex was consistently passed over. Part 1. The visibility trap. More conversations do not equal opportunity. Okay, let's dive into this and unpack a massive myth that Alex and frankly millions of other professionals have totally fallen for. It's this deeply ingrained assumption that if enough people just see your work, well, opportunity is just going to automatically follow. And this brilliantly illustrates the problem. We did an audit of Alex's last 30 days, and wow, the data is absolutely staggering. 95% of Alex's interactions were spent simply maintaining relationships. Friendly catch-ups, basic status updates, routine alignments. Only 5% of their time was spent in spaces that actively changed or elevated how leadership actually perceived them. Alex was just pouring immense energy into conversations, but almost none of it was converting into real strategic opportunity.
Section 2. Blur versus clarity. Why positioning doesn't expand evenly. As a coach, this right here is where I had to sit down and deliver a really hard truth based on the text we're looking at. I had to look Alex in the eye and say, you aren't lacking visibility. You are suffering from a massive dilution problem. See, your positioning doesn't just evenly expand across every single interaction you have at work.
The core of our source material today gives us this phenomenal concept. Interpretation concentrates. So what does this actually mean? Well, it means that while you might spend literally years investing broadly, building familiarity across dozens of teams and functions, your actual positioning, your reputation, only forms in specific, highly concentrated moments. Routine, everyday interactions, they don't really change how you're interpreted. True positioning concentrates exactly where interpretation happens fastest.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how it captures the two totally different paths you can take. On one hand, you have the blur. This was Alex's trap. The blur happens when your effort just spreads across dozens and dozens of interactions that maintain your visibility, but they never actually sharpen anyone's interpretation of you. You just become this busy, helpful blur. On the flip side, we have clarity. Clarity forms when you stop trying to be literally everywhere and instead you make sure that decision-makers see exactly how you think in the moments that actually matter. Most leaders out there are visible everywhere, but very few are strategically positioned where perception actually shifts.
Part 3. The diagnostic. Rethinking your calendar. I want to step away from Alex's story for just a second and turn this directly over to you. I want you to mentally pull up your own calendar for the last 30 days. Let's do a quick diagnostic together.
This right here is the million-dollar question. I want you to really truly think about this. The diagnostic isn't how many relationships am I building or how many meetings did I cram into my Tuesday. No. The question is, where does perception actually change in your organization? Because those specific contexts, not your total volume of interactions, are what shape how you are positioned. If your calendar is just jam-packed with activity but your perception barely moves, you're caught in the blur.
Section 4. The concentration shift. 3 strategic moves. So, what do we actually do about this? Once we identified Alex's dilution problem, over the next 30 days, we implemented this exact actionable prescription straight from our source material. Let's move to and see how this builds. This framework is quick, it's punchy, and it works. You don't need more visibility, my friends. You need better placement of your effort. The 3 steps are, first, identify interpretation environments. Second, show judgment, not just outcomes. And third, audit where effort dilutes. Let's break these down one by one so you can start applying them right away.
All right, step 1. Identifying your interpretation environments. Remember, those routine daily interactions? They rarely shape perception. You have to figure out where leadership in your specific company actually assesses readiness.
Are they looking at high-stakes moments where your decision-making judgment becomes visible? What are the specific rooms where leaders compare signals about talent? Which networks actually influence the summary of how your name is described when you're not even in the room? You've got to find those environments because that is exactly where your effort needs to be concentrated.
Moving on to step 2, show your judgment. Reveal how you think. Once you're actually in those right rooms, you have to completely change how you communicate. You have to stop just showing your work and start showing your judgment. You literally have to reveal how you think.
So, the crucial point here is noticing the huge difference between just doing the job and proving you're ready for the next one. Most leaders, and wow, Alex was incredibly guilty of this, they simply report what happened. They give basic status updates. Hey, I did X, Y, and Z. But strategic leaders, they reveal how they thought. They highlight the trade-offs they considered, the assumptions they deliberately tested, and the risks they weighed to actually get to that outcome. When decision-makers hear your reasoning, they aren't just assessing your performance anymore, they are assessing your executive readiness. It's a total game changer.
And that brings us to step 3, auditing where your effort dilutes. Look, not every interaction contributes to your positioning. In fact, most don't. I challenge you to audit your week and systematically drop the low-yield visibility traps. Stop spreading your energy so incredibly thin. The mantra we want to live by here is really simple. Less activity, more signal. You want dense, high-value signals going to the right people in the exact right environments.
Part 6, a new trajectory. From respected to the obvious choice. Let's bring this narrative back to Alex. Once we shifted away from the blur and focused on this concentration shift, everything changed. By stopping the relentless networking and instead focusing deeply on revealing executive judgment in just 2 or 3 critical interpretation environments, the entire trajectory of Alex's career completely shifted. Just consider the final outcomes here. You can have 2 leaders with identical performance metrics, but over time, the one who spreads their effort widely, they simply become a respected colleague. They're nice, they're super helpful, but they just aren't essential. But the leader who operates where judgment is visible, over time, those high-stakes moments accumulate. That strategic perception compounds, and suddenly, almost like magic, that person becomes the undeniable, obvious choice for the next big promotion. That is exactly what happened for Alex, and absolutely it can happen for you too. I want to leave you with this final, really authoritative piece of advice from our source material. Positioning rarely forms everywhere. It forms where perception shifts. Your value in an organization is ultimately compressed into a summary, a short summary that others repeat about you when you aren't around. You have got to take control of where that summary is actually forming.
Which leads us to our final question. I want you to take this thought with you today, write it down on a sticky note, and seriously evaluate your calendar tomorrow morning. Where is your effort diffusing today? Stop exhausting yourself trying to be everywhere. Find the rooms that matter, show them exactly how you think, and start concentrating your career. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.